Revealed, the sinister ICU case that haunts my every night. A terrifying, unexplained curse. The hospital loomed like a shadowy titan in the heart of suburban Atlanta, its fluorescent lights flickering like dying stars as if desperately trying to fend off encroaching darkness. Each night, Jenna, a weary night shift nurse, returned to its long, empty corridors, ready to face an unseen dread that gripped her tight every time she donned her scrubs. The whispers echoed like ghostly sighs, voices born from corners where flickering light couldn't reach, every shift growing heavier with a secret she couldn't unearth. As she pushed open the heavy steel door to the ICU, an otherworldly chill washed over her. The sound of monitors buzzed like a swarm of dying bees, but it was the comatose man in bed 4 who cast the shadow over her heart. He'd been admitted days ago, slipping into a coma too quickly, too quietly. His case unremarkable yet unsettling gnawed at Jenna's thoughts, turning her anxiety into a choking vice. But during her breaks, between glances over at the man whose life seemed tethered to something sinister, Jenna's curiosity ignited. The hospital had a history, one whispered about in hushed tones by older staff, talk of cursed patients who never truly left. She slipped into the archives during her nights off, digging up a laundry list of grievances about neglect and darkness. The stories painted the building in trauma, painting whispers of pain echoing through walls too worn to hide secrets. "Something's off," Jenna, a trusted colleague, whispered one night, her face drawn tight. "You need to step away from that guy. The death count here, it's rising. You should know better." The warning slithered under Jenna's skin, making her heart race. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Jenna brushed off her colleague's fear, resolution hardening in her. With every passing night, her own fears crescendos into paranoia. Shadows danced behind her, always just out of focus. The nurses wore expressions of unease, but she brushed it off, believing she could uncover whatever haunting lay dormant. Then came the nightmare that all but shattered her resolve. Alone on a particularly oppressive shift, shadows thickened as she stood vigil beside the comatose man. That's when the monitors suddenly blared to life. A cacophony so loud it felt like the very heart of darkness had swallowed the ICU whole. The cold, once comforting, now pressed against her like an iron shroud. A breath, soft against her ear, whispered her name. It was so close that she could feel the chill spill down her spine. Jenna spun, eyes wide, but no one was there. Just heavy silence replaced the ghostly presence. The weight of the whispers flooded back, fingers of despair coiling around her mind. Time was slipping, and she realized with horror that the stories weren't just folklore. Something was truly wrong. As she stood paralyzed, staring into the void where shadows lurked and whispers thrived, a shred of horrifying clarity washed over her. The connection between her life and that comatose patient wasn't just coincidence, it was a web of terror, tightening around her and everything she loved. The lights crackled ominously, as if they, too, warned her. Had she awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed? The uncaring gaze of the unconscious man felt as though it had pierced through her very soul. With panic clawing at her throat, Jenna realized she had only begun to scrape the surface of the darkness that loomed before her. Jenna staggered back, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. The air felt thick, constricting, each breath a struggle against the weight of unseen forces pressing down on her. She shot another glance at the comatose man, his pale skin almost luminescent under the cold fluorescent lights. She didn't want to admit it, but she felt as if he had been watching her. Watching, waiting. Shaking her head to dispel the dizzying thoughts, she retreated to the nurse's station, the wooden desk offering little comfort as she tried to regain her composure. A shift change loomed. Her colleagues, usually friendly faces, seemed shadowed, their expressions distant, eyes darting away when they caught hers. The air buzzed with unspoken fears. "Are you okay?" A voice snapped her back to the present. It was Sarah, one of the newer nurses, concern etching her features. "You look pale." "I'm fine," Jenna replied too quickly, her voice tinged with nerves. She could hear the unsteady quaver, but the words spilled out before she thought better of it. "Just a long night." "Long nights get to us all." Sarah frowned, glancing nervously towards the ICU. "Especially with him." Jenna followed her gaze. The room felt alive, and the hair on the back of her neck prickled. "I just need to finish my rounds," Jenna insisted, practically marching back into the ICU. The monitors were quiet now, the eerie calm unsettling. With a deep breath, she stepped back toward bed 4, heart racing. Looking at the man again, she felt the whisper of dread against her skin. He appeared unchanged, but something was different. His breathing seemed to echo in the silence, a strange sort of rhythm that pulsed through the room. The lights flickered overhead, a warning or a tease, but she pressed on, driven by a sense of compulsion that gnawed at her insides. "Why won't you wake up?" she whispered, feeling a fool as hysteria tightened her throat. "What are you hiding?" The question lingered in the air, thick and tangible. Momentarily, a soft beeping filled the space, but it wasn't from the machines. It felt like the pulse of the room, an unseen heartbeat that matched her own rising panic. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, then everything went dark. The oppressive silence heightened the dread, and she felt swallowed by blackness. Jenna's breath quickened, and her pulse thudded louder. She stumbled backward, trying to orient herself in a place that was meant to shield life but now felt like a crypt. Then, through the murk, a soft murmur pierced the void, barely audible but unmistakably there. "Help me, who's there?" Jenna's voice was barely a whisper, trembling as she frantically flicked on her flashlight. It cut through the darkness like a fragile knife, illuminating nothing but the chilling emptiness of the ICU. Gritting her teeth, she moved towards bed 4, the faint glow revealing the patient's face, stripped of all humanity. But then came another sound. A low moan, deep and resonant, crawling out from the invisible void. It came from him or from somewhere behind him? "Please help." The voice was clearer now, a chilling mix of desperation and soothed harm. Jenna's heart plunged. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to escape this dark mischief, but she stepped back forward instead, driven by a morbid curiosity. "Just tell me what you need," she called out, though her voice cracked with fear. The shadows felt alive, creeping closer, suffocating her resolve. Her body trembled. She knew she was dancing with danger, but the struggle within propelled her toward the unknown. Then, as the darkness thickened, the patient's eyes fluttered open. Jenna gasped, her breath caught in her throat. There was no recognition in those eyes, only an abyss filled with secrets. In that instant, the ICU felt smaller. The walls seemed to close in around her as the weight of unspoken horrors pressed upon her broken spirit. "What have you unleashed?" she whispered, realizing the gravity of her own curiosity. As the patient's hands slowly reached towards her, the lights flickered back to life, wrong and grotesque in form. The first time, she could see it clearly. A dark shadow loomed behind him, stretching, coiling, forming a figure that turned its head slowly toward her, and then the lights went out again. The last thing Jenna heard was her own scream mingling with the dreadful laughter echoing from the abyss. The darkness enveloped Jenna like a suffocating shroud, the echo of her scream lingering in the silence. She pressed her back against the cold wall, heart racing, mind spinning with images of what she had just glimpsed. The laughter was still there, a chilling sound that clawed at her sanity. The sudden return of the fluorescent lights failed to bring her comfort. Flickering like a warning sign, they cast eerie shadows across the bare walls. Jenna blinked, trying to make sense of the chaotic scene, but everything felt wrong, twisted. The man in the bed looked as if he had always been there, yet the shape behind him, what was that? Fear gripped her gut like a vice as her eyes darted around the room. "Is anyone here?" she called out, her voice quivering, almost swallowed by the weight of the darkness that still lingered around her. No answer. Just silence that felt heavy, alive with unspoken terror. With trembling hands, she fumbled for the flashlight, its beam cutting through the room once more. It landed on him, the patient, his features now sharper, more pronounced. She could see beads of sweat rolling down his forehead, collecting at his temples like tiny droplets of panic. Something was crawling beneath his skin, a twitch or a flicker that could easily be mistaken for desperation, but it felt so much more sinister. "Just stay still," she shouted, as if she could will the chaos to obey her. But inside she felt the shadows tug at her sanity, whispering secrets she dared not hear. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in, urging her to look away, to give up on the man she once thought was merely a victim of circumstances. The patient's eyes, those cold, dark voids, locked onto her. "You should not be here," he rasped, his voice that same haunting whisper that seemed to echo from deep within a nightmare. Jenna staggered backward. "What do you mean?" she asked, barely audible, but it was futile. She could not stop the terror weaving its way into her marrow. "Stop looking," he murmured, his lips barely moving, yet she caught every word, woven into the very fabric of the air around her. The tremors of his voice sent shivers racing down her spine. "It sees you too." Suddenly, the shadow behind him thickened, pulsating like dark smoke. It stretched outwards, tendrils reaching hungrily, coiling around the bed, yearning for her. Desperately, Jenna turned away, running towards the door, panic blinding her reasoning. But as she approached, it slammed shut with a bang that resonated through the room, vibrating against her eardrums. "No! No!" she cried, pounding against the door. It was locked, the cold metal mocking her, as she felt the pulse of the malevolent figure drawing nearer. She spun around, the flashlight beam dancing wildly, and caught sight of the man once more. His body lurched as he spoke again, voice dripping with dread, "You have woken it. Now we all suffer." Tears prickled in the corners of her eyes as the reality of his words washed over her like icy water. The darkness wasn't just in her mind. It was alive, feeding off the fear that wrapped around the room like a serpent. The longer she stayed, the more it would take, the more they would suffer. As the lights flickered ominously, Jenna could see the dark figure now. It was monstrous and grotesque, shaped like the nightmares spun from the deepest fears of every soul that had passed through these walls. It turned its head, and with it, Jenna felt her breath hitch. "Time is short," it hissed, voice echoing in a way that shook the very ground beneath her feet. "You can either join us or leave with the truth." Which truth? Which path? The choice loomed before her like a haunted specter. Jenna felt the walls squeezing in tighter, suffocating her options. Heart pounding, she realized there was no way out. What would she sacrifice to escape this living hell? In that moment, deep down, she knew. "Help!" She screamed, not knowing if it was for herself or for the souls trapped in this nightmare. The laughter returned, echoing against the walls, swirling in the dark. How long could she hold on? To her sanity, or her life before it consumed her too? As the figure stretched its clawed hands toward her, Jenna took a breath and prepared to confront the darkness, knowing she might never find the way back. "Will you fight?" It crooned, and then silence fell again, heavier than before. The decision weighed on her, the darkness ready to claim yet another soul. What lay beyond that choice? She had to know. Jenna's mind raced, caught in a cyclone of fear and confusion. The darkness around her pulsed, and she could swear it had a heartbeat. She could feel it, thumping against her chest, sinking with the panic in her veins. The grotesque figure loomed in front of her, shadows weaving like smoke, and its form twisted, morphing as it danced between realms of nightmare and reality. "Join us," it taunted, voice low and slithering like a snake. She felt a visceral urge to recoil, to evaporate away from the madness in front of her. But the walls were closing in, the air felt thick, like trying to breathe through syrup. The man's eyes flickered with terror, mirroring her own. "Stop!" she yelled, pleading. "Stop!" But the words fell unheard, swallowed by an abyss of laughter that echoed through the room. The light flickered again, a frantic heartbeat in the oppressive gloom, revealing scenes from the past, twinkling eyes of frightened patients, the grief of families lost. She shuddered at the revelations, drowning in the weight of their despair. Were those souls trapped, like the man before her? Did they come here looking for healing, only to find eternal suffering? "Close your eyes," the dark figure whispered seductively, its breath foul and decaying. "Let it take you. It's easier that way." Jenna stumbled backward, her hands brushing the cold wall for grip. It felt alive, pulsating beneath her touch. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to block out the terror. Another moment spent in that dark figure's world might consume her. Suddenly, she remembered her flashlight. The beam had been flickering and inconsistently illuminating the room, but its light was still a weapon. She needed to fight, needed to reclaim her sanity. Holding it like a shield, she pressed the button, the light brightening more than before, illuminating the shadows creeping ever closer. The laughter froze, almost as if it had been halted by a spell. Jenna's heart raced, and she pushed into the growling darkness. "You don't control me!" she shouted. The creature recoiled slightly, its monstrous face contorted in what seemed like surprise. But then the surprised expression twisted into something darker, something more sinister. "You think light can save you?" It merely masked the reality of the darkness. It sneered. A chill washed over her as she dared to glance beyond the creature, towards the bed where the man lay trembling. His eyes were wide, urging her to escape, to understand what awaited those who lingered too long. The truth he spoke of gripped her, a cold terror wrapping around her neck like a noose. "Don't let it take you," he rasped, urgency seeped into his voice, carrying a warning. "This is not a game, it's hunting you." Her grip tightened on the flashlight, and she felt a rush of adrenaline. There was something about his words that made the raw terror shift inside her. It was as if he was showing her the way out, a glimmer amidst the swirling shadows. "Tell me," she screamed, battling against the creeping dread that gnawed at her mind. "Tell me what I need to do." The darkness seemed to contract as she spoke, and she could feel the creature's gaze narrowing, seething at her defiance. "Choice is an illusion," it hissed, flicking its claw-like fingers in a vibrant motion that made the walls tremble. "Fear governs all. You cannot escape it." Suddenly, the room erupted in chaos. Sounds of muffled cries mixed with the creature's howling laughter filled her ears. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest. Panic surged, pushing her to the brink. Which choice would lead her to salvation? With a surge of bravery, Jenna stood tall, feeling the adrenaline crawl through her. "I refuse to be a part of this. I refuse to let it win." The light from her flashlight exploded brighter, illuminating every shadowed corner of the room, causing the creature to shriek, recoiling from its harsh brightness. But as the darkness shrank, Jenna realized the truth. She was not just fighting for her life, she was fighting for the souls entrapped in this nightmare. Would she stand alone against the horror? And then, just beneath the surface of the chaos, something else stirred along. Lost memory tugged at her mind, illuminating who she used to be before this darkened place tainted her. "Remember your past?" the figure murmured, its voice a chilling whisper against the tide of her conviction. "What you have forgotten is the key to survival." "What past?" The question echoed through her, urging her to think, to remember. But what lay hidden in her memories was buried deeper than she could fathom. As they converged, light against dark, she realized she had just begun to scratch the surface of the truth. What would she uncover when she dared to confront what was once forgotten? The stakes had never felt higher. In that moment, Jenna knew the darkness would reveal its answers, but at a price. Would she be willing to pay it? The pulse of the darkness tightened, constricting around Jenna like a serpent coiling around its prey. Every breath she took felt shallow, as if the very air had turned to ash in her lungs. The grotesque figure loomed larger, its shadow swallowing up the trembling man on the bed. His eyes widened, a reflection of the horror bubbling within her, an echoing scream trapped behind chattering teeth. "Fight it, Jenna!" the man gasped, his voice a fleeting whisper. But his panic only heightened her own. She could feel the weight of despair pulling her down, the nauseating smell of rot creeping into her senses. The flashlight flickered again but held steady, a resolute beam against the chaos. "Your past holds the answer," the creature hissed, its smile sharp and jagged, like shattered glass. "You've forgotten what you truly are." "Who am I?" Jenna shouted, her voice lacing the air with desperate defiance. Each word struck like a hammer, cutting through the pandemonium. The room shuddered, and for a moment, the creature faltered. As if sensing her resolve, the laughter shifted, a low rumble rumbling through the air, mixing with the distant wails of voices long extinguished. Shadows teetered, stretching and weaving as if alive, whispering secrets to each other just out of her reach. "Don't listen. It lies," the man urged, each word pouring with urgency, yet his own body trembled, locked in the grip of fear. Jenna focused. "What is the key?" she demanded, her innate worry and dread crystallizing into focus. "Tell me." The darkness recoiled at her courage, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it was somehow afraid. "You're not meant to remember," the figure shrieked, the force behind its words nearly tangible. "You will be punished." The flashlight flickered but held on, a lighthouse in a storm. Jenna could feel a shape forming within the recesses of her mind, a familiarity long buried in the depths of despair. She felt it gnawing at her, beckoning her to dig deeper. "I remember something," she stammered, her heart racing against the tide of dread. Images swam before her like broken pieces of glass, flashes of laughter, warmth, a loving smile, then abruptly replaced with shadowed faces and whispered fears. "Embrace it," the figure urged, its voice now dripping with malice. "You want the truth? Then come join the rest." With that, a flood of shadows surged towards her, an overwhelming tide trying to sweep her under. "No!" Jenna shouted, raising her light higher. "I want to be scared. I choose to remember." A surge of strength pulsed through her. Yet, the more she fought, the more pitiless the encroaching darkness became, clawing at her edges as it sought to consume her. And then in a shocking flash, she remembered everything: the hospital room she'd painstakingly tried to forget, the desires that pushed her to be the best nurse, filling her heart with purpose. She recalled whispers of things that went wrong, of patients she had seen, and of one particular case that had haunted her mind. The darkness recoiled slightly, sensing her struggle. "You think those memories will save you?" it shrieked, frantic. "They will only drag you deeper." But Jenna felt a new resolve breathing life into her. "They are a part of me. You can have them." Suddenly, the weakened man moved. With a sudden bolt of energy, he sprang from the bed, emitting a low groan, and staggered towards her. Jenna's heart raced as she finally saw the truth in his eyes, those haunted, beseeching eyes that seemed to hold the key to unlocking the prison of shadows. "Together," he rasped, stretching his trembling hand toward her. "We can break it. Don't let the darkness win." Just then, the shadows surged again, creeping over the floor and walls, threatening to engulf everything in eternal night. The man's voice twisted through Jenna's memories, pushing her further. "Recall the truth. It's your only weapon. Your past is stronger than it knows." Barely catching her breath, Jenna let the flashlight illuminate the shadowed corners one last time. Determination surged within her. Maybe together they could uncover the truth and unleash the horrifying past the darkness wished to bury. What if she hesitated, heart in turmoil? The truth is worse than we can imagine. As the shadows writhed, Jenna's resolve firmed into something unbreakable. Together, they might just turn the tide. Would she risk everything to confront the darkness, to stand in the haunting past that could consume them both? It was now or never. But beneath that dark pressure, another chill crawled up her spine. What if the truth was more than just painful memories? What unspeakable horrors lurked just out of sight, waiting for their moment? The question hung in the air as the shadows began to close in once more, and the monsters screeched a haunting cry that echoed through the room. Would they survive the encounter to unlock the secrets of their past, or was this their final stand against the overwhelming darkness? The shadows lunged like wolves, greedily lunging toward Jenna and the man, eager to swallow them whole. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest, a serrated edge against the cold, damp air. The flashlight burned bright, but even that light felt feeble in the face of the creeping darkness. She grasped the man's trembling hand, feeling the warmth of life amidst the encroaching chill. "Together," she repeated, her voice stronger this time, but uncertainty trembled beneath her words. Memories clawed at her mind, visceral reminders of the lives she'd tended to, the patients lost on her watch. Those figures in her past simplified to a single thought. How much blood was on her hands? The man, breath ragged, echoed her sentiment. Remember your patience. The names, the faces. They're the key. With every syllable, the shadows recoiled as if dragged back by invisible chains. Jenna squeezed his hand tighter, her spirit lifting despite the darkness crashing in. But was her past truly the weapon they needed, or just another tool for the creature to use against them? The thought nagged her like a parasite burrowing under her skin. Think, she shouted, desperation fueling her. Look deeper. The darkest memories are often the clearest. He gasped, casting frantic glances around for an escape. The creature sneered, its jagged teeth gleaming as bright as the flashlight S-beam. Desperate little nurse. Do you not know what horrors you've woven? This is only the beginning. It lunged forward, shadows spiraling like a highway of despair. Jenna felt a violent wave wash over her, a rush of memories flashing in near painful clarity. Each was an arrow dipped in poison. The old woman who had smiled one last time before fading away. The child who had drawn her a crayon picture, begging her not to let go. They approached her, their eyes wide, a chorus urging her to remember. Not the memories, not like this. The pleading chorus turned into a cacophony, drowning and pulling her under the weight of their loss. Jenna! The man's voice broke through, intense and filled with terror. Don't let them take you. Fight. Summoning a fierce breath, she focused on the light again. I will not forget you. The shadows hissed, recoiling back as her voice filled the room. Faces crystallized in her mind as if she were looking through a shimmering glass sphere, each one lighting a path back to the surface, each memory fighting against the dark tide. Remember them all, the man urged. What do you see? I see. Her breath hitched terror and torment, but also love. I loved them. With every admission came strength, an armor forged from regret and affection. Yes. Use it. Push back. He encouraged, his eyes aflame with newfound determination as he moved closer, the spectral chains of the atmosphere dissolving around them. Fueled by the haunting faces, Jenna raised the flashlight, illuminating the darkness that sought to engulf them. The radiance blazed, pushing shadows back, creating an open space against the night. The creature screamed, thrashing in palpable fury, yet retreating against the onslaught of her memories, each lit like a beacon of hope. Now! She urged the man, heart pounding. Push through! The once timid man surged forward, propelled by the bond they were forging, his essence entwining with her own. An unbreakable rush fueled by shared pain. The shadows screeched, clawing helplessly at the light, their form warping in desperation. Then Jenna's heart sank as she spotted something in the corner of her eye, a dark shape, unmistakably grotesque, slithering closer, breaking through the barrier of light. It was not just the creature but something worse. What is that? She gasped, dread mingling with her courage. The figure was a distorted shadow, twisted, radiating despair in waves, chaining its essence to the darkness. The man beside her faltered, eyes widening in horror. It's feeding off our fear. We must destroy it. The abyss looked back at them, an unholy vortex of memories begging to remain buried. Clots of black smoke wrapped around their limbs, tightening like a hand choking the breath. From her throat, panic bubbled within as she demanded, "What do we do? What if we can't face it?" He shouted, voice fierce with an urgency that pressed against the darkness like a shield. "Hold on to the love. Together, we can fight it." Yet Jenna couldn't shake the question, what if the truth was hidden within that twisted figure? What if it gripped not only memories but the very essence of her past sins? Just as the darkness seemed poised to swallow them both, her resolve teetered on the brink. But what if it knows my secrets? The shadows paused, and for a moment, Jenna felt the chilling weight of her darkest fears fill the air. But was she willing to shatter her world to uncover the truth? The creature roared, the sound swelling into an even deeper darkness, as if feeding off her uncertainty. Legitimate terror clawed at her limbs, but now was not the time to falter. With a fierce shout, she cried, "Let us end this." But as they prepared for battle, the shadows twisted wildly, forming new shapes, new horrors that shimmered in darkness, ready to envelop them once more. What truly lay behind that shadowed facade? Could they confront the truth before it consumed them both? Jenna's heart raced, her pulse echoing in her ears like the beat of a war drum. The shadows, now coiling around them, whispered her name, a ghostly sound that twisted her stomach into knots. Despair hung thick in the air, a rancid smell that threatened to suffocate her. "Stay focused," she shouted, her voice cutting through the haze of fear that blanketed the space. The man beside her was rooted in place, eyes darting around wildly. He looked horrified, paralyzed by the tendrils of darkness curling closer. "Jenna, we need to remember." His plea came out as a choked gasp, desperation leaking through. "Your love! Use it!" The monstrous figure twisted with a predatory grace, its surface undulating as if alive, reaching out toward them with jagged fingers formed of pure darkness. The glow from the flashlight began fading, a fragile flicker too weak to hold the night at bay. "You don't need to fear your past," the man urged, his voice trembling but fierce. "Face it. Find the strength there." Jenna's mind whirled with the faces, the memories, each one a clash of light and shadow. The child, the notebooks crammed with names, the moments of laughter overshadowed by grief. Her love was tangled in pain. Could it truly break the chains binding them? Or was it a mere illusion placed before them by a cruel master? "No!" she shouted at the creeping creature, daring it to engage. It shrieked in response, a sound wrought with malice, and launched itself toward her, claws poised to strike. Jenna slammed her eyes shut against the tempest of darkness. Shadows whipped around her, but the warmth of the man's hand anchored her. "Breathe!" he yelled. "Focus!" With a deep breath, Jenna inhaled memories of laughter, voices calling her name. She felt the love swell, battling the fear. The light flickered, igniting in intensity, as she channeled every ounce of strength from her patience. She could hear them, each pleading face, each moment of fleeting time, joining her fight against the encroaching dark. "I will not forget," she declared. The creature howled, a visceral sound that vibrated through the air. In that moment, Jenna realized her ordeal was stitched together with the fragments of lives she had touched, a tapestry woven from threads of both love and sorrow. With feral determination, she waved the flashlight as if wielding a sword. Light pierced the shadows, cutting through the dismal onslaught, illuminating truths that had been buried. Faces seeped through the darkness, not twisted in pain but filled with resilience. "Keep going," the man encouraged, regaining some confidence. "Don't stop." Energy surged within Jenna as she pressed forward, the darkness shrinking before her. Patterns of despair rattled like paper, losing their form against her rising hope. Yet, just as they believed victory was near, the twisted figure morphed again, expanding with a slow menace, its eyes, a fathomless void opening, eerie and cold. It seemed to be staring into her very soul, exposing the rawest edges of her fears. "What do you hide beneath all that love, nurse?" it hissed, voice oily and dark. "What sins do you bury in shadow?" A surge of panic gripped her. Memories stammered in her mind, battles lost and mistakes made. She shook her head, trying to deny the lingering guilt. "No! I will not let you." The shroud of the entity pulsed, its shadows seeping into her thoughts, entwining around her failures. "Hold on to the love," the man shouted, clutching her arm, but his own fear rippled beneath the surface. "Don't let it in." Jenna's resolve faltered. What if it spoke the truth? What if the love she clung to was also tied to her darkest moments? As the shadows thickened, rolling in waves toward them, Jenna felt the tightness in her chest swell. Would the truth she faced shatter her world entirely? "Together," he implored. They had to unite against the darkness. But could they truly confront the monster that hungered for their past? With dark laughter echoing in the void, Jenna felt as if the weight of her misdeeds pressed down, threatening to drown her. What consequence awaited them if they dared to unveil the secrets concealed within? The shadows swelled, impossibly alive, ready to consume them whole. Just one step closer, and they might learn more than they bargained for. Would truth liberate them or plunge them deeper into despair? As they stood on the precipice of revelation, the air trembled with dread and anticipation, binding their fates. And in that pulsating darkness, an undeniable question loomed: could love truly conquer all, or would it lead them to their end? Jenna's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation soaked in dread. The shadows pulsated, thick and textured, like a living entity, wrapping tighter around her thoughts. All she could hear was the taunting laughter of the darkness, echoing through her mind as if it owned the very air they breathed. She tightened her grip on the flashlight, her last flicker of hope. "Focus, Jenna. We can't let it win." The man's voice crackled with urgency, a lifeline tossed into a churning sea. But Jenna was starting to fray at the edges. Memories she buried deep clawed their way out, raw and brutal. Faces twisted in anguish darted behind her eyelids, demanding attention. What if her love was not enough? What if the past, instead of fueling them, became their downfall? The monstrous figure stretched, its form splitting like a blackened flower, revealing countless gaping mouths lined with serrated teeth. Each mouth seemed to whisper secrets, dark confessions that sent chills racing up her spine. What's more terrifying, nurse? The agony of today or the sins of yesterday? Jenna felt a cold sweat trickle down her back, mixing with the damned warmth of despair. "Shut up!" she screamed, mustering the last remnants of courage. The shadows danced menacingly, daring her to dive deeper into her own treachery. She gritted her teeth, forcing down the knot of fear tightening in her throat. "I will not bow to you, Jenna!" The man's voice shook her back, snapping her free from that dark edge. "Concentrate. You can do it. We have to face this together." His hand squeezed hers, grounding her once more. The creature lunged again, a chaotic mass of despair and regret. If it touched them, it would envelop them in a never-ending nightmare. Jenna's legs felt leaden, but she couldn't freeze. "Not now. Not ever. Remember your love," she yelled, her voice rising above the cacophony of whispers. Suddenly, a face flared in her mind, a little girl with wide, trusting eyes. "Mommy?" The memory was a beacon, brightening the engulfing shadows, illuminating the path forward. Jenna held on to that image with all her might, the innocent joy of days long gone, reminders of purpose and promise. "Push back," the man urged, his voice fierce. "Use it." As they both pumped the flashlight toward the encroaching darkness, beams of light erupted like fireworks, scattering the shadows. Jenna drew strength from the love she had nurtured over the years. The bonds tangled tightly despite the fraying edges. Images of laughter, kindness, and triumph surged up, and in their wake came an angry wave of defiance. The creature writhed, recoiling before the dawn of their collective memories. Jenna felt the shadows thin, felt the dark hold loosening. But deep inside she knew it wasn't enough. The truth still lurked in the depths. What truly lay beneath her love? In the uproar, Jenna heard a soft whisper and echo amidst the furious chaos. "You can't just escape your sins," it wrapped around her, cold as ice. "You must confront them, hold on." She fought to stay present, to ignore the doubt clawing its way back into her psyche. But as the whispers grew louder, she found herself teetering on a knife's edge. The shadows hissed, swirling menacingly. What if all that love is just a mask? What if love is also your greatest sin? Jenna's chest tightened painfully. No! I refused to believe that. But uncertainty coiled around her heart, squeezing. What was the truth behind her care? Could unaddressed guilt morph into something darker? A flicker of movement caught her eye. The man beside her was pale, sweat beading on his forehead, eyes reflecting shattered hope. "Jenna, we need a decision. Fight or be consumed." The darkness loomed larger, and the walls of their shared reality rattled with the force of their impending doom. Just then, Jenna noticed something glimmering at the heart of the creature, a light flickering in chaotic rhythm, fighting to escape the shadow's grasp. Could it be a piece of her past fighting its way to the surface? Tension thrummed in the air, crackling with the weight of choice. Would she seize it, or stand back and let the darkness claim them both? As they faced the encroaching void, Jenna felt her heart pounding louder than ever before. This was a fight beyond just survival. This was about truth, and the tightrope upon which her very soul balanced. What awaited them on the other side could either free them or damn them forever. With the creature roaring back, Jenna stood resolute, resolved to confront whatever lay buried within. But would it be salvation or a descent into madness? The shadows convulsed around them, dark tendrils reaching out like ghostly fingers, itching to reclaim the space they'd briefly lost. Jenna's heart raced. She felt trapped in a tug-of-war between the light and the creeping dark. It was a precarious moment, but it was also a pivotal one. "Jenna, focus!" The man urged again, but his voice seemed to stretch and reverberate, lost amidst the din of chaos. The light in the center of the creature pulsed with a rhythm that matched the frantic beat of her heart. It beckoned her, a siren call in the midst of despair. "Let me go!" Jenna shouted, forcing the man to release her hand. The moment felt monumental. Eyes widened in shock as she stepped closer to the creature. She didn't know what to expect. The air around them grew denser, charged and thick, wrapping around her as if it had weight. She could feel the shadows swirl, whispering venomous doubts into her ear, promises of failure that suffocated her efforts. "Remember them, Jenna!" the man shouted, but she couldn't think of anything except the flickering light. The faces of her past mingled with memories of loss, anguish echoing like a hollow drum. Why did it hurt so much to remember? Why did love feel like a curse? Jenna took a deep breath, a desperate attempt to steel herself against the flood of emotions. The little girl's laugh danced through her mind, a fragile light amid the shadows. She stepped closer, wading through the darkness, and summoned every ounce of willpower she had. "Whatever this is, I won't lose," she declared with resolve, her voice just loud enough to cut through the whispers. Then, in a sudden flash, she understood. The light was not just a memory. It was her past. Both the joy and the horror coiled together. A horrifying truth surged through her, an epiphany layered with bone-chilling clarity. She had once sacrificed too much for love, leaving parts of herself behind. That abandonment was the very darkness that now loomed before her. "Jenna!" The man's voice jolted her back to the present. "Get out of there. It's a trap." But she couldn't turn away. She had to confront this. The shadows convulsed greedily, eager to re-establish their hold. She felt her anxiety rise, heart like a wild drum. For every moment of joy she remembered, it clawed back a darker sin, a selfish choice, a quiet betrayal. The creature recoiled for a second, as if her realization was a direct attack. Its many mouths hissed in frustration, their whispers morphing into a cacophony of tortured echoes. "Face it!" they jeered, but Jenna felt stronger now. "I'm here!" she shouted back, and without thinking, she lunged forward into the creature's swirling mass. The lights flickered brighter, illuminating secrets of her own making. Moments of vulnerability, weakness, love twisted into something grotesque. As she plunged deeper, she caught glimpses of her daughter's face, aged by pain. Memories of laughter and tears intertwined, but so did shadows, each a reminder of actions she had buried, guilt she had hidden. The realization felt suffocating. Where was the line between love and chaos? The darkness buried in her heart rose to the surface, revealing faces she thought she had buried forever. "What if my love made me a monster?" Jenna cried out, her voice breaking through the din. The man's hand clasped her wrist, pulling desperately at her. "No! Don't let it in! That's the trap!" But it was too late. Jenna felt the shadows swirl around her, drowning her in their black embrace. The tendrils wrapped tighter than ever, suffocating any remnants of determination. Her breath quickened, the pressure building, and for a fleeting moment she was certain she would succumb to the depths of despair. Then a blinding flash erupted in her mind, a light so vibrant it obliterated every whisper. Love, true love, was not weakness, it was the strength to face the monster inside. Jenna charged into the darkness, arms outstretched, determined to reclaim what she had lost. Just as her fingertips brushed against the flickering light at the heart of the creature, it erupted in a scream that sliced through the air like glass shattering. The darkness strained, writhing violently, revealing a crack running through its core. But then, from that very crack, a familiar face surged forth, a woman with eyes as familiar as her own, yet full of despair. It felt like looking into a mirror distorted by pain. It felt unreal, terrifying. "Save me!" the woman shrieked, pulling at Jenna with an urgency that twisted her stomach into knots. In that moment, Jenna froze. Was this who she thought it was? The veils separating them blurred. Would saving one lead to the destruction of another? Caught between her daughter's love and an anguished shadow from her past, Jenna stood paralyzed, heart pounding wildly. "Make a choice, Jenna!" the man yelled, but the words seemed to fall away under the weight of the moment. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the next, fueling the surrounding shadows. Jenna had to act. But was it salvation or damnation that awaited her? With darkness closing in, she felt the pull of the past and the present battling for dominance. What would happen if she reached out? The decision loomed heavy, and as she raised her hand to grasp the flickering light, everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. What if this was both the beginning of her salvation and the end of everything she held dear? The shadows screamed as she moved closer. Would she risk it all? Jenna inhaled deeply, feeling a rush of air as if it could cleanse the weight off her heart. The pressure around her felt suffocating, monstrous and alive, yet the flickering light pulsed, inviting her to bridge the chasm between love and loss. It reminded her of the faces, the laughter, the stories, the warmth of connection. Everything she stood for illuminated the path forward. Together! She screamed, determination roaring within each syllable. She could feel the man beside her matching her energy, fusing their resolve like a protective shield against the darkness writhing around them. With a force she had never before wielded, Jenna reached for that light. It flickered like a candle's flame, whispering promises of hope even as shadows clawed at her skin. She felt the agony of choices long buried press against her, memories surging with an intensity that threatened to drown her. But she wouldn't let it win. "I choose love," she bellowed, willing her emotions into that light, each moment of laughter, each tear of agony transforming them into a beacon of defiance. The monstrous figure recoiled, the many mouths of the creature howling in frustration. "Foolish girl!" it screamed, pushing back, attempting to snatch at her very essence. "You cannot escape what you are." The man beside her leaned in close. "We can break it. Remember, Jenna. What's hidden can set you free." His words ignited a glimmer of understanding deep within. The truth was just about facing the darkness, it was about accepting the light that had existed even in the most desperate moments. The good intertwined with the bad, each experience making her whole, shaping her into the person who could conquer this nightmare. The flickering light expanded, blossoming outwards as Jenna poured her strength into it. She closed her eyes as she embraced the faces of her past, the lost patients, her daughter, and the love she had shared with both. They swelled around her, a shimmering tapestry of hope. "I am not defined by my darkness nor by my mistakes," she proclaimed, and with that, the light exploded in a glorious flash, engulfing her very being. The shadows backed away, and in its wake, clarity dawned. Memories flooded her, vibrant and clear. She lived each moment, the softness of her daughter's hand, the laughter echoed in the sterile hallways of the hospital, rekindled by love's flame. With each connection she made, each thread of hope, the monstrous figure shrieked, bending under the power of those memories. "Find your truth and stake your claim," she shouted, emboldened, feeling the man resonate with her energy. Together they surged forward, defying what had once imprisoned them in silence and fear. She could see the creatures shifting, contorting, the faces within pleading. They too desired release, and in that realization, she felt a shift, the very fabric of darkness tearing as she exuded her truth. In a heartbeat, Jenna grasped the flickering light within her reach. It pulsed brilliantly against the shadows, illuminating the true horror of her past. Memories untangled and spilled into the open, weaving a path toward liberation. "You are not my chains," she cried out, channeling raw power as she drew strength from every person who had ever doubted her, twisted into the fabric of her love. The darkness writhed, but Jenna stood firm. "You will not own me!" Her voice rang out, resounding with an authority that shattered the weight of despair. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of agony morphing into echoing silence, the grotesque figure collapsing, unraveling until only scattered whispers remained. As the light surrounded her like a protective hug, Jenna felt liberated. The air was fresh, almost electric, and the thick weight that had once choked her spirit began to lift. The man beside her looked transformed, a ghost of anguish dissipating into relief as hope surged within them. Together they had carved a path through the darkness, rekindling what it meant to be truly alive. With lingering hope guiding her, Jenna opened her eyes. The ICU, once a harbinger of nightmares, shone with a surreal clarity. The comatose figure in bed lay still, but in that stillness, Jenna felt an incredible wave of peace wash over her. No longer shackled by the sins of the past, she had confronted them, learned from them, and emerged victorious. The weight of the hospital's history still lingered, but it now felt less ominous, more like a tale that would continue to intertwine with her own. Twisted memories were now just that, memories, fragments that could foster healing rather than hurt. With a sigh of relief, she turned to the man beside her, who smiled back in radiant understanding. "You did it," he whispered, words mingled with the warmth of newfound freedom. A bond forged in shadows had led them both back into the light. In that moment, Jenna knew she would never forget each face, each life, both lost and saved, would remain imprinted in her heart as a tapestry of love, resilience, and unwavering commitment to healing. As she stepped away from bed ready to face a world anew, the whispers of the past no longer felt threatening. They sang instead, a ballad of humanity, echoing in the corridors of her heart. Jenna took a deep breath, looking toward the door that whispered of a future filled with possibility, and she strided forward, stepping into tomorrow with her head high, armed with the truth that love conquers all, even in the darkness. Now it's your turn. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next spine-tingling adventure. Smash the like button to show your support and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what Jenna's journey means. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who deserve to experience this conclusion. Your engagement fuels our passion.